So I've just finished watching a video on YouTube. Soundtrack is the song by Nina Simone called Strange Fruit, which was a cover of Billie Holiday's song. That video, it consisted of pictures of black people, black slaves, getting lynched, getting burnt alive, getting thrown off bridges. So what really got to me was how each picture clearly showed each line in that song. So I'm gonna attach the link in the description box so you can watch the video as well. It's not a PG-13. Like, I would say if you're 18 and over, then watch it because it's quite it's a really haunting, like, it's one of those videos that you would see on something like Live Leak or something. So if you're not old enough, please don't watch it. If you're quite sensitive, quite empathetic, and if that's going to affect you mentally, please don't watch it. It was so upsetting to see, obviously, how a human being can treat another human being just because of the color of the skin. This is it. This just the color on the skin. I have seen actual pictures of and videos of people getting murdered, genocide. Um, I was a politics student back in the day, like nearly 10 years ago. So this was not part of it, but it's like, when the curiosity gets the best of you and you're studying about genocide, and you're like, I need to see it. I need to see how horrific it was. Reading is okay. Reading can show you what happened, but when you see the pictures, when you see the actual archive footage, that will stick with you forever in your whole life. And it should stick with you forever because that's a normal life. So many people are still going through things like that. This particular video, it really haunted me because we've been brought up, especially in the Western world, to believe that somehow slavery and segregation was hundreds of years ago. Like, it was such a long time ago, so we don't really need to talk about it anymore. It wasn't a long time ago. It only officially ended in the second to last century. And the slavery, it does go on quite a lot even now. Lynching only stopped in the last century, 70, 80 years ago. There's actual voice recordings of slaves, people born into slavery, talking about what they went through, what happened to them. This is all on video. It's on pictures, it's on video, it's on recordings. Like, and when you think about the introduction and advancement of cameras and audio recordings, it makes you realize, like, how recent everything was, how recent everything actually officially ended. So when people say Black Lives Matter, you shouldn't get defensive. You shouldn't shout all lives matter. We know all lives matter. My life matters. I'm not black, but I don't get offended when a black person says Black Lives Matter. That's neither here nor there. Don't take it so to heart. Like, oh, they said Black Lives Matter, they don't care about my life. No, they're just talking about one particular brutality in history. Every single people, every single religion, ethnic origin has suffered. But when someone wants to talk about one particular incident, one particular genocide, one particular historical event, let them talk, please. Just let them talk. It's not going to take away from what you've suffered, from what you and your people have suffered. Don't get so personal about it. The Nazis got to power so quickly because the so-called good Germans, they stayed quiet. And yeah, I know it was very dangerous, and that's the point. Like, the longer you stay quiet, the more dangerous it becomes to actually stand up and fight and stop what's quite clearly wrong. The so-called good Germans, after a while, they ended up believing the propaganda because it made them feel good about themselves. So even if at the start of the Holocaust they disagreed, as the time went on, because of how much propaganda there was by the Nazis, the people started believing it. Because believing that I'm better than a Jewish person, or I'm better than a Roman gypsy, I'm better than the Russians, it made them feel better. Because at the end of the day, everyone is suffering. So when someone comes along and says, you're special, you're better than them, everyone believes it. So eventually, a lot of, obviously, Germans, they didn't see the abuse of the minorities as something unacceptable. They saw it as revenge. They saw it as just revenge, that this is my revenge for what so and so has done to me in the past 10, 20 years. Like, but they thought that way because their world became so small. Does that make sense? They didn't know anything else. They only knew I'm better than the people who don't look like me. Therefore, I'm going to support my government in whatever they're doing, and I'm going to punish those kind of people. And this is like the point I'm trying to make. It's like, don't be so insecure in yourself and shout, I'm not a racist, every time a black person wants to talk about how they've been treated, or every time a Muslim talks about Islamophobia that they've experienced, or a Jewish person wants to talk about like the Holocaust, or they want to talk about anti-Semitism that's happening now, or a trans person wants to talk about the transphobia they faced. Why are we so quick to get offended when someone says, I was mistreated? Where's your empathy? Where's your fucking ears? Where's your listening devices? Why not just shut up and say, okay, this person is talking, let them talk. Let them say what they want to say. Surely you should see it as a good thing that someone feels comfortable around you in your energy to open up about something so traumatic that happened to them or that happened to the people. Why can't, instead of thinking, I'm not racist, why is she telling me this? Like, why not just stay quiet and learn, and then have a discussion, gain knowledge from that person, and talk about what could be done going forward? Why do we not see this as a learning opportunity when someone wants to talk about something that they've suffered from? So obviously slavery and lynching don't exist anymore to that extent, but police brutality and systematic racism does exist. Now, obviously, this is gonna piss a lot of people off. No, shut the fuck up. Like, there's plenty of documented evidence to suggest, to show categorically that it's happening and it does exist, okay? Just because your personal belief doesn't accept the fact, the truth, doesn't mean that the evidence that we have, what the researchers, journalists, professionals who do this kind of stuff, what they've documented is just not true. Just because you disagree with a scientific fact doesn't make you right. Does that make sense? You're not that important. So, okay, so let's say you believe that police brutality doesn't exist anymore. Or that, you believe that if one person got shot by the police, in a case like America somewhere, it wasn't because they were black, it was because the police were acting in self-defense or the police were trying to protect the community. Obviously, this comes down to the individual circumstances, individual cases. So what we see, how did someone react? And we can spend all day going into the nitty-gritty of, in this incident, the victim, the person who was shot by the police, they didn't react in any way that warranted the police shooting them. And again, there's plenty of documented evidence to show that the people, the victim, did nothing of the sort to... There's so many incidents where the police acted too hastily, shot someone dead because they thought someone had... Tamir Rice comes to mind, There was the guy, I can't remember what his name was. I'm gonna have to look it up and I'll put it in the video. The guy, it was a black family, so the guy was young and he was sitting in the car. The police stopped him because they said he was speeding or something. His girlfriend was in the car and the child was in the back. So the police come over and they say, we're going to search the car or something. They said, show your driving license. So the guy said, it's in the compartment and I do have to let you know I do have a firearm in that. He was honest with the police. And what did the police do? As soon as the police agreed, okay, you told me you have a firearm, I want you to still open that compartment. And as soon as he went to open it, they shot him dead. Are you telling me that's not racism? Are you telling me after he's done what he was supposed to do, after he's alerted the police that there was a firearm in the car, and he's told them the firearm and the license is in the same area, do I still reach? And the police has gone, yes, you still reach for the license. The police has gone, change my mind. In front of his girlfriend, in front of his child. And this is all on video. You can't even deny that the police officer wasn't a stupid fucking cunt, basically. Another example, an extreme example, that shows that racism does exist regardless of what you want to say. So the Charleston shooter, Dylan Roof, he shot people in a church. When the police arrested him, instead of taking him straight to the police station, they took him to Burger King for a meal. Now, can you give me any other example where the police have gone, well, this is a person who's killed multiple people, but you know what? He needs to be treated to a Happy Meal. Are you telling me that's not racism? Are you telling me, can you give me an example of a black victim or an Asian victim, or not a victim, okay, a criminal, let's say that, a black criminal or an Asian criminal who was treated with such privilege by the police? Can you give me one example? I would really like to know. Put it in the comments. I would really like to know if you can think of any example. I can't think of any example that's like, I can't think of anyone who was afforded privilege like that by the police. So even if you do believe that systematic racism doesn't exist, that the police officers aren't corrupted, or the system is not corrupted, the system is not racist, when someone gives you examples, again, just shut your mouth and just listen. Listen and put your thinking brain on this time and think, okay, what the police did in this was quite clearly give this white criminal privilege, which they would not give to anyone else. So yeah, you can say, well, this was just a one-off, but why did that happen? This isn't like Dylan Roof, he robbed something, the police like, oh, he's just a kid, let's just get him a Burger King meal before we take him to the station. He killed multiple people. He killed people on purpose, and it was quite clear to the police officer at that time that he planned the attack. He got guns. He was in his sane mind when he did it. So let's try and have a little bit of empathy. If you're white and you say that racism doesn't exist, and you know you're not a racist, when someone else wants to talk about an incident that happened to them that was racist, where they believe they were a victim of racism, just shut your dirty mouth and listen to them. Listen first, and then if you believe that that's not racism, you can say it in a respectful manner. That's the point. I've never seen someone say that wasn't racism in a respectful manner. It always turns into, well, you're black, you're always playing the victim. You're brown, you're always playing the victim. You obviously did something. You're Pakistani, you're Muslim, you're this, you're blah, blah, blah. When you do this, you can't say, I'm not a racist, because this is literally the equivalent saying, I'm not a racist, but you're Jewish, so you obviously steal stuff. I'm not a racist, but you're Pakistani, you're Indian, so you obviously smell. These are all stereotypes. These are very extreme stereotypes. But if the stereotype is the first thing that comes into your mind when someone wants to talk about a racist incident, you are a racist. You have bigotry in your heart. And instead of trying to learn, trying to make yourself better, trying to become more open-minded, you get defensive. That's another sign of racism.